I remember the first time she said my name. Not like a customer, but like it carried weight. Soft, slow, as if she was testing how it felt in her mouth. It was after closing hours at the repair shop. The kind of evening where everything hums too quietly, the fluorescent lights buzzing, the air thick with motor oil, and something faintly metallic. I was wiping grease from a wrench when she walked in, wrapped in a beige trench coat that didn't quite match the weather. "I know you're closed," she said, "but my car, it just died 2 blocks down." I should have told her to come back tomorrow. I always do. But something in her voice, calm, polite, almost embarrassed, made me set the wrench down. She stood by the door, hands clasped too tightly around her keys. Mid-40s, maybe. Her hair was half up, the kind of effortless that only looks that way when it isn't. She didn't smile much, but her eyes, there was something unfinished in them. Like she'd started to move on from something, but hadn't really left it behind. "Pop the hood," I said, and she did. The rain started just as I leaned in. Not a downpour, just that thin drizzle that makes the air smell like rust and memory. She hovered near the front bumper, arms crossed, trying to stay dry, but not stepping away. "Battery's fine," I muttered. "Might be the alternator." "I don't even know what that is," she said, and for the first time, she laughed. Quietly, like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to. It wasn't flirting, not even close, but it was something. The kind of small, human moment that fills the silence too much. When I reached for the jumper cables, our hands brushed, just once, accidentally. Her skin was cool, maybe from the rain, but I felt it like heat anyway. She didn't move her hand right away, and neither did I. Then she stepped back, tucked her hair behind her ear, and said, "Sorry." She wasn't sorry. Not really. I told her I could give the car a temporary fix, just enough to get her home. She nodded, thanked me twice, and watched while I worked. There was something unguarded about the way she looked at people, or maybe just me that night. I couldn't tell. When the engine finally coughed back to life, she let out this sigh that sounded like relief and regret at the same time. "You're good at this," she said. "You look like someone who fixes things." I laughed. "I break them first." She smiled then, the kind that doesn't show teeth but stays in the eyes too long. I felt it settle somewhere in my chest, unwanted and undeniable. Before she drove off, she hesitated at the window. "Do you?" she started, then stopped herself. "Never mind. Thank you, really." The taillights disappeared down the street, and I stood there long after, listening to the rain fade into the hum of the city. My hand still smelled like metal, and her perfume, something faintly citrus, clean but warm. I told myself it was nothing, just another late-night customer. But when I washed my hands, the scent stayed. Even the next morning, it lingered, the memory of her hand against mine, that pause before she spoke, the look she gave when I made her laugh. Now, every time it rains, I catch that same scent on the air, and my skin remembers what my mind shouldn't. She came back 3 days later. Not with a broken car this time, just a question. "I thought maybe you could check the brakes," she said, standing at the edge of the shop like she wasn't sure she was allowed to be there. Her tone was casual, practiced, but her eyes flicked around too much. The walls, the floor, anywhere except me. I wiped my hands on a rag. "Sure. You've been hearing something." "Not really." She hesitated. I'd rather be safe." She could have gone anywhere. There were half a dozen repair shops closer to her part of town. But she came here, at dusk again, when the shop was empty and the air smelled like wet cement. I didn't ask why. While I worked, she stood by the counter, flipping through an old car magazine like she cared about engines. She didn't. I caught her looking at her reflection in the dark window instead, not in a vain way, more like she was checking who she'd become since last week. She wore her hair differently this time, loose and slightly frizzy from the humidity. A single strand kept falling across her face. She'd tuck it behind her ear, only for it to slip free again. It was the kind of small, repeating motion that drew my eyes no matter how hard I tried not to notice. When I asked her to press the brake pedal, she climbed into the driver's seat. I could see her hands trembling slightly on the wheel. Not from fear, more like exhaustion that she was too proud to admit. "You okay?" I asked. She blinked, then nodded quickly. "Yes, just a long day." Her voice was softer than I remembered, like she'd used it too much lately on people who didn't really listen. I told her the brakes were fine, but she stayed sitting there, fingers tracing the steering wheel. I didn't move either. The silence between us stretched, not awkward, but fragile. Then she said, "You're young." It wasn't an insult, but it landed like one. "Yeah," I said carefully. "Is that a problem?" She smiled, that small, apologetic kind of smile people give when they've revealed more than they meant to. "No, just unexpected." Her gaze met mine then. Direct, steady, but there was something else behind it. A flicker of recognition, or maybe warning. I looked away first. Outside, the rain had started again, soft, rhythmic. The kind that fills every pause. I offered her a cup of coffee from the back, half joking. She surprised me by saying yes. We stood by the workbench, paper cups in hand, not talking much. The radio played faintly in the corner, some old song she must have known, because she hummed a note before catching herself. "That's from the 90s, I said. "I know," she murmured, half smiling. I was there. Something about that line, the weight of time between us, made the air feel different. When she finished her coffee, she thanked me again, too softly, like it wasn't really about the brakes. Then she reached for her keys and paused. "You shouldn't be this kind," she said. "People might misunderstand." Before I could answer, she was gone. The bell above the door still ringing as I stood there, trying to decide whether she was warning me or herself. And all night, the words looped in my head. Not the warning, not even her voice. Just that moment she looked at me like I reminded her of something she'd lost. It started raining harder that Friday night. One of those downpours that swallows sound and time alike. The shop had closed an hour ago, but I stayed late, finishing paperwork I didn't really need to. I think I was waiting for something without admitting it. And then, she came. Her headlights cut through the rain-streaked glass, soft and ghostly. She stepped inside, drenched from the short walk from her car, holding a folder against her chest like it might shield her from something more than weather. "Sorry," she said quickly. "I didn't mean to show up like this. It's just, my wipers stopped working, and I couldn't see a thing on the road." Her voice trembled, but not from cold. I grabbed a towel, wordlessly, and handed it to her. Our fingers brushed again, barely, but my pulse still stuttered. She took it, drying her hands, then ran it absently through her hair, strands sticking to her face. "You shouldn't be out in this," I said. She gave a small laugh. "Story of my life." The joke didn't land. Or maybe it landed too hard. I checked her car quickly, promising to look at it in the morning. She nodded, distracted, pacing a little. The rain outside was relentless, and she looked cornered. Not by me, by herself. "You can wait inside till it slows down," I offered. "There's coffee, if you don't mind it burnt." She smiled faintly. "Burn is fine." We sat across from each other on the workbench table, 2 paper cups between us. The light flickered once, just enough to make her face catch in shadow and glow. She stared at the steam rising from her coffee like it was easier than looking at me. "You live alone?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "You?" She hesitated. "Used to. Now it's complicated." There was that word again, the quiet wall she built between every sentence. She looked tired tonight, but not in the usual way. Tired of pretending, maybe. Her eyes carried that faraway focus, the kind that means someone's remembering what they shouldn't. "You ever wish you'd done things differently?" she asked suddenly. "Every day," I said. The honesty surprised even me. She looked up, met my eyes, and for a second neither of us breathed. Outside, thunder cracked, and she flinched. Barely, but enough that I noticed. Without thinking, I reached across the table, fingers brushing hers. She didn't pull away this time. Her skin was warm, pulse quick. The kind of touch that says don't, but don't stop either. Then her phone buzzed. Once. Then again. She froze. The screen lit up. A man's name I didn't know. She turned it face down, too fast, and drew her hand back as if burned. "I should go," she whispered. "You don't have to." She looked at me, not angry, not afraid, just torn. "That's exactly why I do." The rain had eased by the time she stepped outside. I watched her go, her silhouette dissolving into the wet glow of the streetlights. I didn't follow. I couldn't. But when I turned off the lights, The heat of her hand still lingered on mine, a ghost that didn't know when to leave. And that night, for the first time, I caught myself wondering what would have happened if the phone hadn't rung. She didn't come by for a week. I told myself I didn't notice. I kept busy, extra shifts, pointless repairs, conversations that went nowhere. But every time the door chimed, I looked up too quickly, hoping it was her. It wasn't. Then, one evening, just before closing, I found her waiting by the side of the shop. Not inside. Outside, near the vending machine, half hidden under the awning. The rain hadn't started yet, but the air felt heavy with it. "You're avoiding me," I said quietly. "I thought maybe it would help," she replied. Did it? Her silence was answer enough. She looked pale, like she hadn't slept. Hair tied back, eyes rimmed with the kind of tired that doesn't come from work. She wasn't wearing makeup tonight, just herself, raw and unguarded. Somehow, that made it harder to breathe. "I didn't mean to make things complicated," I said. "You didn't," she whispered. "I did that all by myself." She looked away, at the street. Cars passed, headlights washing over her face in pulses of white and gold. For a long time, neither of us spoke. The silence between us had changed, no longer gentle or curious. Now it was heavy, aware. "I keep replaying that night," she said finally. "The storm. They almost." Her voice caught on the last word. "I shouldn't have stayed," she went on, softer now. "You're kind. You listen. It's too easy to forget that you're not mine to lean on." "I never asked you to forget," I said. She turned then, eyes meeting mine. There was a sharpness there, not anger, but pain that had nowhere else to go. "What are we doing?" she asked. It wasn't rhetorical. It was a plea. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I wanted to tell her it was nothing, that we were just two people crossing paths at the wrong time. But my voice refused to lie for me. Instead, I said, "I don't know. But it doesn't feel wrong when you're here." Her eyes flickered, surprise, maybe, or recognition. Then she took a step closer, slow and deliberate. Close enough that I could see the faint freckles along her collarbone, the slight tremor in her breath. "You shouldn't say things like that," she said, barely above a whisper. "Why not?" "Because I'll believe you." The words hung there, fragile, dangerous. Neither of us moved. The first drop of rain hit the pavement, sharp and cold. She looked up, as if it gave her an excuse to step back. I didn't stop her. She wrapped her coat tighter, turned to leave, then hesitated at the edge of the light. Without looking back, she said, "You make me feel something I promised myself I'd buried." Then she walked into the rain. I didn't follow. I couldn't. The silence she left behind was louder than her voice, and it said everything we hadn't. It was a quiet morning, the kind where the city feels half asleep. I'd been under the hood of a pickup for an hour before I saw her car roll in. I didn't expect it. I'd stopped expecting it. She stepped out slowly, sunglasses on though the sky was gray. There was something different about her posture, a stillness that looked more like surrender than calm. "I didn't come for the car," she said. "I just needed to drop something off." She held a small envelope, folded at the edges from being handled too long. I wiped my hands, nodded, unsure what to say. "It's for you," she said, placing it on the counter. "Don't open it until I leave." Her voice was steady, but her fingers trembled as she set it down. I wanted to ask why, but her eyes warned me not to. So I just said, "Okay." She smiled, faintly. "You're good at that." "At what?" "Letting people keep their secrets." Then she turned and walked out, coat brushing against her knees, hair catching the light. I watched until the door closed, and the sound of her car faded into the hum of traffic. For a long moment, I just stood there. The envelope sat where she'd left it, light as paper, heavy as guilt. I told myself not to open it. I did anyway. Inside was a single photograph. A younger version of her, standing beside a man, mid-30s, maybe, by a lake at sunset. She was laughing, caught mid-turn, joy spilling out of the frame. The kind of laugh I'd never seen from her. On the back, in small handwriting, were 6 words. "You remind me of him." Too much. I sat down without meaning to. My chest felt hollow, like I'd been caught pretending to understand something that was never mine to know. So that was it. The resemblance. The hesitation. The way she'd sometimes look at me as if memory had replaced my face with someone else's. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough for the air to grow still, for the weight of those words to settle. When the door finally opened again, it wasn't her, just a delivery guy dropping off parts. But for a split second, I looked up too fast. The habit had sunk in too deep. That evening, I found myself standing outside the same spot she'd parked last week. The rain had left faint circles on the asphalt. I traced them with my boot, imagining her voice again, low and careful, because I'll believe you. I didn't realize until then how much of what I'd felt wasn't about her laughter or her eyes. It was about being seen by someone who remembered love enough to fear it. And maybe that's the cruelest part. I wasn't replacing anyone. I was just a reminder that she once could. She came back when the season started to change, when mornings felt cooler, when everything smelled faintly of endings. No envelope this time. No excuse. Just her. I was sweeping the shop floor when I saw her standing by the doorway, watching like she'd been rehearsing this moment in her head and still didn't know her lines. "You got my message," she said softly. "I did. And..." I set the broom aside. "And I think I finally understand." She nodded, as if she'd expected that answer, or feared it. Her eyes looked tired, but not from lack of sleep. More like she'd stopped running from something and was finally feeling the weight of it. "I shouldn't have given you that photo," she said after a while. "It wasn't fair. You're not him." "No," I said, "but he mattered to you. And that matters to me." The words slipped out before I could dress them up. She blinked, startled, not by the meaning, but by the gentleness in it. For a long moment, we just stood there. The hum of the fluorescent light above us was the only sound, steady and thin. "I kept thinking I was doing the right thing," she whispered. "Keeping distance, staying careful. But somehow that hurt more than the mistake I was trying to avoid." She looked up then, eyes searching mine for something unnamed. Forgiveness, maybe. Or just understanding. "Do you hate me a little?" she asked. No, I shook my head. "If anything, I hate that I can't." Her breath caught, soft and uneven. She took a small step closer, not enough to close the space, but enough for me to feel it change between us. "I don't know what this is," she said, "and I'm not sure I want to name it." "You don't have to," I said. We stayed like that, two people standing in the quiet center of something that didn't need permission anymore. The afternoon light shifted through the window, spilling gold across her shoulder. She reached up, almost absently, brushing a strand of hair away from her face. Then her hand faltered midair, and instead of pulling back, she rested it lightly on my arm. It wasn't a question. It wasn't an answer either. Just a touch that said, "I'm here. I see you. I remember." I covered her hand with mine, not holding, just resting there. The contact was simple, steady, a fragile truce between what we wanted and what we understood. Outside, the wind picked up, scattering dry leaves across the street. The sound filled the space like breath, like the world had paused just long enough for us to catch up. After a while, she said, "I don't think this goes anywhere." "I know, but I think it happened for a reason." I nodded. Neither of us moved. The silence didn't ache anymore. It settled, calm and certain. When she finally stepped back, her hand lingered on mine a heartbeat longer than it should have. Then she smiled, the kind that doesn't reach the lips, only the eyes. And just before she left, she said, barely above a whisper, "You'll forget me someday. But I won't forget this." I watched her go, not chasing, not breaking, just standing there, where love had happened quietly, like rain drying from the pavement. It's been 8 months since the last time I saw her. The shop feels quieter now, though I doubt it really is. Maybe it's just me who's changed, listening differently, noticing the empty spaces more. People still come and go, engines still hum. The same radio station still plays old songs that mean too much at the wrong moments. But every once in a while, I'll catch a scent, citrus and rain, and it's like memory breathing down my neck again. I don't think about her every day, but when I do, it's not the ache it used to be. It's softer now, like looking at light through fog. I think that's what time does. It doesn't erase, it just turns sharp things into shapes you can hold without bleeding. She taught me that, without meaning to. For a while, I kept the photograph. Then one morning, I placed it back in the envelope and tucked it into the glove compartment of her old car, the one she'd traded in. I figured it belonged there. A closed loop, a gentle goodbye. I've had people ask about her. The woman who used to come by. The one with quiet eyes and careful words. I just tell them she moved away. Maybe she did, in her own way. Maybe we both did. But sometimes I think about that last afternoon. The way she touched my arm. The weight of her words. You'll forget me someday. But I won't forget this. I haven't forgotten. Not the feeling, not the stillness, not the strange peace that followed. What I learned from her wasn't about love, not exactly. It was about what comes before and after it. The space where longing meets restraint, where kindness feels like risk, where two people share something real but unnameable. Love, I think, isn't always about staying. Sometimes it's about being changed by someone and walking away whole anyway. I still fix cars. I still leave the lights on too long after closing. And sometimes, when rain taps the roof just right, I'll look toward the door like habit, expecting nothing, but remembering everything. Maybe that's the point. Not every story has to end in forever. Some just end in truth. If she ever hears this somehow, if she stumbles on these words or recognizes her reflection between the lines, I hope she knows I kept my promise. I didn't forget. I just learned how to remember differently. Because some touches fade, and some stay under the skin, quiet, permanent, and kind. And if you've ever had someone like that, someone who didn't stay, but somehow left you better, tell me. Maybe that's how we keep them alive. What do you remember most? The person or the feeling they left behind?